Hi, everybody. Happy all the things. I hope everybody's having a wonderful holiday season. Just checking the audio here. Let me get my comments going. Make sure everybody is up and doing the things and enjoying their holiday. Thank you very much to Brian Hyde for joining. And I did it again and said that I wouldn't, and I did it again. I've got it going in the background here so I can see what's going on. But just a quick check-in here, make sure that the audio is good and the video is working and all of that is doing all the things. Get a comment in the comments here. Let me know that everything sounds good. Thank you to Brian Hyde for becoming our latest lieutenant. Thank you, Mr. Hyde, Lieutenant Hyde, excuse me, Lieutenant Hyde. Great to have you on board in the Board Game Nation. So we're going to send you guys off to visit the hold screen, and we're going to get some more folks on here, and we will get started. We got so much to get through today. We're super excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's get some more folks on here and I just realized that was the wrong background. That was from the giveaway we did a couple weeks ago, which was a lot of fun. And folks are starting to get those prizes now. We sent them out last week, and of course it's Christmas week, so there's the mail's always going slow. But those are starting to arrive, and folks are sending in pictures of their prizes, and we really appreciate that. So if you have received one of our gifts, fantastic, congratulations. We gave away a bunch of really cool stuff last week, week and a half. 2 weeks ago, and it was just a ton of fun to though there was a couple pieces that I was like, man, I'm excited to see that go. That was really cool. It was really cool stuff to give away. But I'm glad everyone's enjoying it, and I hope everybody's having a great holiday season, and everyone's seeing family and being safe and playing some Axis and Allies or your board game of choice. And we're thrilled that everybody's here. Everybody say hi to Jon Bosch. He's moderating in our comments today. Thank you, John. Great to see you here. And we've got General Sapp is here. Fantastic. Mr. Richard, thanks for being here. Steve Thorpe, I think he might be related to one of our staff here. I'm not really sure what it's a weird coincidence. All right, well, without any further ado, let's bring in our fine feathered friend here, our fellow bald man in combat. Please welcome Mr. Doug Thorpe. Hey, Doug.
Not quite bald yet.
I see how it is. That's fine. Just leave me out here. Leave me out here.
It's good to be here, Gary.
Well, it's good to have you here. I need to find my sound effects. Where are my sound effects? I feel like oh no, I gotta find them. They've wandered off. I get so many menus on this. It's like I'm on a. Oh my god! I feel bad that you've entered without the glockenspiel. All right, well, I will look for it. Well, anyway, so thanks for being here, Doug. We've got so much to get through today. First, let me say, I got to thank you to Lieutenant Brian for joining us, Lieutenant Brian Hyde for joining us. He is, I believe, our 33rd member, and if we can get to 40, then we're going to be giving that big bad boy away right there. This is the on this side is the original 1984 rule book signed by the man himself, Mr. Larry Harrison. We'll be happy to send that off to Parts Unknown once we get to 40 members. So fantastic. So we've got a ton to get through. Want to make sure that everyone is aware. We're going to be talking today about the video that dropped on Christmas. Members got it on Christmas Eve, but to the general public, they got it on Christmas Day around noon Eastern time. And we're going to be talking about that. So there will be spoilers. If you have not seen that video yet, I don't know, plug your ears, do what you're going to do. But be aware that we're going to be talking about that game, how it ended, who won, some of the different tactics that were involved, things that went well, things that didn't go well. So just to kind of give everybody a moment to talk about that or to think about that. So while spoiler folks are thinking about their life choices, let's see if we can answer one of these other questions here real quick. Keegan, Mr. Alexander, what is the hardest country in Europe opinion to play? I'm guessing which is the hardest country in Europe to play? I assume you're talking about Axis and Allies Europe, the 1940 Europe version, and wanting to know which of those countries is the hardest to play. Doug, you've got more experience with that version than I do. What do you think?
I don't know. We're just talking. Yeah, we're talking Europe. I would probably say Germany. I mean, you got guys on all sides of you. You have to coordinate. Yeah, that would be my thought right off the top of my head. If we're talking about ANA Europe 1940.
Yeah, I guess my thought would be that I think every power is challenging in its own way, right? So Germany has, a bunch of challenges right away, but then like when you think about the Americans, for them to be, useful or to have an effect, then they've got to plan really well, right? So they've got to be able to do the logistics of it all. The UK's got to make smart choices with their naval forces and what they do in Africa. So I mean, to me it's tricky because it's a lot of times it's going to be situational. But I think Matt here has got the best answer. France is the hardest country to play in 1940 Europe. Yeah.
Well played, Matt.
Well done, sir. I would give you the glockenspiel, but I can't find my sound effects. So no. But no. So yeah, that's absolutely the A answer, Matt. Well done. Thank you very much. Awesome. So, we've got a super chat from Ted for marketing. $10. Thank you very much. Jeff and Owen here watching. How do you feel about your strategy from last year's tournament taking over the play and bidding skewed, bid skewing towards the Allies this year? So Ted, first, thank you very much for the super chat. We really appreciate that. All of these certainly go to help support making more content like this, and gives us the ability to travel to tournaments to be able to capture the histories of the game so that we can bring that stuff to you. I was a little surprised. I'm not gonna lie. I was happy that um, that people enjoyed what that everybody enjoyed the videos last year, and a few of those videos are up over 200,000 views now. So there's a lot of Axis and Allies players, but like there's not that many, right? So when you think about like how you shift the game. And in the video that we just published, we were talking to Alex and Owen in that game, different Owen than is mentioned in this comment, and they basically said that the Thorpe Thump had basically become the meta for 1942 second edition. And I have to admit that when I was walking around the tournament floor that morning for that first round, and there were, I don't know, 8 games in play, 10 games in play, however many there were, almost every one of them seemed to be employing some version of the Thorpe Thump. So it was pretty. I was surprised by that, but I thought it would have an influence, but I didn't think it was going to be that much. Pretty stark, but yeah, it was cool. And by the way, off air, Doug and I and Alex and Owen were talking about how well Jeff and Owen, it's a man, I guess maybe a little bit younger than me, and I think his 12-year-old son played in the 42 second edition tournament, played great. And they did really, really well. And apparently were set to make the finals and had to catch a flight or something. So they were really, really strong players, and we certainly hope to see them back soon. Doug, I've been talking for a while now. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember going around. I think it was round one, like you said, 8-10 games. They're basically all doing some sort of kill Japan first strategy. I was a little surprised. I think it shows that it's effective. It's definitely not the only way to play the game. But I think I was a little surprised at how successful it was for most of the Allied players. If I remember correctly, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, didn't the Allies win in every single one of those games? Maybe there was one exception. I was thinking you
Um,
said
yeah. So what Alex said when he was playing was that every every game that he had played in, the Allies had won. Um,
yeah, yeah,
and I don't know if that was the case in every game that was out there. But when you start
that's
seeing
for
that, of course, now you're
strategy.
going to, yeah, I don't know if it was every round in every game or if
Yeah,
everybody played some version of the Thorpe. I don't know.
yeah.
But it was definitely, um, it definitely was enough to change the bidding when it came to the semifinals and the finals, which is really
Yeah.
pretty interesting. So yeah, it was cool to see, and Jeff Owen, fantastic. Thanks for being here this evening, and for playing with us at Gen Con. We hope to see you again there real soon. And thanks again for the super chat. Very, very nice. We got another super chat. Holy cow! Mr. Alex Berg is now in for $20. Thank you very much, sir. Very kind, very kind. And I believe he has a question. Great video on the final, but it felt a lot like
RNG wrote the random number.
random number generator was very
Yeah.
much with the access. Yeah, there was, man, they had some really severe dice outcomes in
It was
that game. There's
brutal
no
for the
doubt about
Allies a couple of times.
it. Yeah, it's one thing that we know, and we saw this when we did the North Africa final as well. Is one thing that we've proven with these videos is, man, when somebody's dice are on God mode, ugh, because they get pretty hard to beat pretty fast if you can't
Yeah.
hit anything and they can't miss. So yeah, that
So here's something that's interesting, and I don't want. Well, maybe I won't spoil too much. I know we're going to get into spoilers, but we saw last year when during Gary and my run that you're able to overcome bad dice rolls as the allies if you play a sound strategy. The question is, where is that the same in this game or not the same? Like,
Right. So,
there
so
were
yeah.
some opportunities the Allies had that, upon looking at further, Gary discovered that despite the bad dice rolls, very interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But I will say that when you get into when you either have to be lucky and okay, or you have to be unlucky and brilliant, right? Like those are the two paths to victory. And if you can't be lucky, then you'd better be brilliant, right? So that's kind of the trick. So, Alex, again, thank you very much for the super chat. We really appreciate that. And if you are interested, we'd love to see you as a member. We've got stuff to give away. If you're interested in supporting the channel in that way, we'd appreciate that too. So, fantastic. Thank you, sir. So,
I think there was an
oh,
early
oh,
question
here we go.
about
No,
turn.
no, no. Ted, Jeff, and Owen said they won as the Axis ones. So it
Okay,
is it. So and I said this in the videos last year. Like the Thorpe
good.
Thump is not unbeatable,
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
right? Even played to its, even played brilliantly. If can equal there are strategic answers to the Thorpe Thump, so it can be beat. So and we still need to make that video where you and I play and we kind of show how that
Yeah,
can
yeah.
happen. But even against really solid Axis play,
Hmm.
it's not a lock to win for sure. So
Yeah.
it's the thumb is still a really good strategy. So anyway, so yeah, thanks for letting us know about that. Matt has a question. Let's see. In 1942, a more popular way of playing compared to 1940, I prefer the larger scale at AETO, for example. I'm afraid I don't know what that acronym means. Like AETO. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what that is
I don't know either.
either.
Matt, come back and let us know what expand on this question here, because I'm happy to compare 42 second edition to 1940. Um, I think they're different enough that they're almost different games,
Yeah.
but they're not different games. The mechanics are all the same, but it's the difference between like long play chess and speed chess, right? It's just kind of a little bit of a different animal. But go ahead, Doug.
I think a quick answer to that is 1942 second edition is a more entry level version. If when you say 40, I assume you're talking about global. It's just hard to get into Axis and Allies via global, I think, for a lot of people. So I think 42 is more of a gateway, simpler, smaller, more manageable, great way to learn and get into it. So I do think it's more popular from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that though that there are advanced strategies for 42 second edition that that do keep it challenging enough that I wouldn't call it necessarily a. I mean, it's complexity wise, yeah. Europe and Pacific are more complex, but it definitely is a different thing. Okay, so we now have a better explanation, and I think we answered the question, even though we didn't know what that acronym meant. The European Theater, Advanced European Theater of Operations, World War II simulation. Yeah, so yeah, I think we covered that. All right, cool. And yes, that
There
does
was a
feel like something I should have known.
Yeah. There was a question in early about tournament prep, I believe. I think I saw it right maybe when we were on the hold screen.
Maybe that'd be you. Um, my father and I have been getting into ANA 1940. Always come to the conclusion that the Allies will win. Any advice for the Axis? Um, I found the Europe's pretty balanced for the most part. I mean, you can bid it if you want to, right? If you think that the Allies are favored, then you can bid to the Axis and try to balance it out that way. I will say the best way to get past, see, and I hear this a lot, and this is probably a good piece of advice here, is that I hear people say that like Pacific is slanted to the Allies or to Japan or to, you know, or Guadalcanal, they can never win as Japan or whatever. Play with different people. That is the best way to get past this hump, right? Because everyone in your group is probably seeing the same basic strategies. They're moving the same basic ways. And the best way to break out of that is to either watch strategy videos where other people are playing or play with other people and get the opportunity to see other ways of thinking, which I think is probably the best way to get better at this game specifically, and all games in general, really. But all right, real quick, we got about 50 people online right now. Thank you all for being here. Please take a quick moment and let me know in the comments where you're calling from, or where you're watching from, and hit that like button for us, because it really helps push this out to other folks that might be interested in it. So let us know where you're watching from, and hit that like button for us, if you please. If you please. Thank you very much. All right. I think it is time. Once again, we are now going to start talking about the final match from the 1942 second edition tournament at Gen Con. So, spoiler alert. Here we go. All right. So, there you go. If you're here, you're into it now. So, the Axis win by resignation. The Americans, the Allied players, resigned after US 4. And one of the number one questions that we got was about the attack, the UK attack in C-Zone 37. It ended in a bit of an unusual way, and we're going to watch a replay video of it here in just a second. And we're going to pause along the way here to kind of discuss this just a little bit. I haven't figured out how to have that video playing and have us on the screen at the same time. So well, you won't be able to see us, but you should be able to hear us. So here we go. This is, again, the UK's assault, UK 1 assault on C-Zone 37. So it's going to be 2 fighters, a sub, 2 cruisers, the aircraft carrier versus a battleship, a carrier, and 2 fighters for Japan. And so we're going to watch this play out here. We got Idaho, Minnesota, California, Australia's in the house. What's happening,
Nice.
my friend? Down under, fantastic. Montana's here, watching from Oregon. Fantastic. Thanks for comments, guys, and thanks for hitting that like button for us. We appreciate it. All right, here we go. So we're going to look at this again. UK 1 assault on C-Zone 37.
So you get a sneak attack? Okay. Sneak attack, 2.
So this is the sub ability.
Yes, okay, I got a 1 for the
Yes.
carrier.
Carrier. This is
2 hits.
2 of their 4 hits.
So this on the aircraft carrier. Okay.
Okay, so you got 2 hits to take here. What do you take? So I'd love to know what you think in the comments here. We've got about a 20-second delay from me talking to you guys hearing it. So Doug and I are going to talk about it for a second, and we're going to bring in your comments as we go along here. Again, 2 hits to assign here. Doug, what do you do?
I think it's important to remember that in this C-Zone, there is an island so your fighters can land. And I think the fighters are incredibly important to Japan, so I lose the carrier.
Okay. All right, so we lose the carrier. Fair enough. Okay, so that is what the Axis opted to do, even though they thought about it a number of times. And so that was, by the way, that was not me pausing and going backwards. That was him changing his mind 3 or 4 times.
All right, 22. 1 hit? Yeah. 3 or 4? You got it. 4 hits.
And then that happened.
Ouch.
Yeah. What do you think about what the Allies lost there?
I think there's a question of whether you keep the sub or not. If you get the sneak attack and hit the battleship, it doesn't shoot back. But if you're going to lose the carrier, you do lose the one fighter because the fighter has moved. I think is it 3 or 4 spaces? It's not going to have a landing spot. So even though I would say fighters are better than the cruisers, I think you do have to pick the fighter over the one cruiser. So I think this is a fine decision.
Yeah, because the fighter that they lost only had one move left, so it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be able to go anywhere. So yeah, for sure, I think that's the right move.
Okay.
And then we put that together for next week.
Out of combat.
So I'll do the battleship.
This I found this interesting. Like without hesitation, he went for the battleship, and this was kind of the question that everybody had was like, do you lose the battleship here or one of the fighters? Because you've got a pretty good chance of taking out both of the attacking units, so the battleship is going to repair. I don't know, and I think there's an argument either way here. But what do you think?
I would probably lose a fighter if I'm in this situation. If I think I'm going to get wiped, if he still has 4 units, 5 units left as the Axis, I mean, as the Allies, maybe it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think I keep the battleship. You can replace a fighter. Even though I do think the fighter's a little bit like more versatile. You can use it inland. You can do more with it, but they're obviously going after Japan. So I think if you can hang on to that battleship, that's pretty solid for your Navy.
Yeah, here's an interesting thought. Matt's got a good point here that he would have backed out after that first round. Would you have resigned, or would you have pressed this attack, or would you have retreated, or would you have pressed this attack? That's an interesting thought. I don't know.
I don't think. Well, the battleship heals and you keep the 2 fighters, so I think you have to press one more round with Britain. I
Yeah.
mean, you gotta. To me, you got to try to. I mean, you have a 50-50 shot. Maybe you only hit one, but I think you
Right.
probably got to roll one more round with the Allies.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Because if if you can get the battleship, fantastic. Which is what they did here. They did get the battleship. So
Yeah.
Do it. Hey, the battleship was already hit.
Yeah, the battleship out.
Did you die? Okay.
Yeah, the battleship's gone.
Okay, that's good.
So
Battleship
I have both my fighters survive.
Right.
Land on the island.
right. Okay. So I mean, where does that leave them? Like with those 2 extra fighters, they were critical for the rest of the game, right? So now you can buy a carrier, and not have to, worry about having fighters for it. I mean, that's a big difference, and this is a really low probability outcome for this battle. I mean, the UK is favored going into it. I think it's 64%, something like that. So yeah, this was one of those you were talking about before. It was kind of a rough dice game for them. So yeah, this was tricky, but yeah. So I hope that answers some of the questions that we got about that. And Doug, you've sunken down, my friend. There you are. Okay. So I hope that answers some of the questions that we got about that. Oh no, there was the problem. There it is. Okay. So I hope that made sense and was able. It was helpful in kind of walking through that. Yeah, John agrees with you. The odds with the sub are better because if you kill the battleship, the sub survives because the fighters can't hit it because they don't have a destroyer. So at least you'd have that sub left over. And that one like kind of rogue UK sub run around in there can be a problem, particularly if you're planning a kill Japan first strategy. If you can put that sub in there with a couple bombers and a fighter or whatever, then that can really be a sticky wicket, as the British might say. All right.
Yeah, that's a tough outcome for the British. You really want to. I mean, if they sneak out of there with one fighter, it's not as bad. But that's really tough. All they killed was the carrier and the battleship. I think that happen to us in game three of our tournament run. I feel like something very similar happened where they made it through with a couple fighters, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember. Um, this is a good question. Landon wants to know: is it beneficial to attack Pearl Harbor so the U.S. can't combine the Navy? Um, Doug, I'll let you take that one. You seem to have an opinion.
I do have an opinion. I like attacking Pearl Harbor with Japan on round one. I think you have to be careful about what you commit and what you don't. But I think killing the American carrier and fighter there is pretty critical. If you don't, America could have three carriers, depending on their build at the end of round one. I think that's really tough for Japan to overcome. That being said, I've seen Japan be successful and not attack Pearl Harbor. I don't think it's a must, but I really like that. I like it.
Yeah, I don't normally do it for a couple of different reasons. One, I found other things to do with the fleet. Usually, it's cleaning up UK units or getting in a position to challenge for Calcutta. Um, if I can get to Calcutta before the UK, or if I can get to Calcutta before the UK can build anything significant, or the US can get around, it's going to be really hard for the Allies to win that game because
Yeah.
Russia's almost certainly going to fall not long after that. So that's usually my play, and I don't find, unless I'm playing Doug, I don't find a lot of U.S. players are fast enough with it, particularly if you're sitting there with your full fleet. Right. So if the UK, say, didn't attack Sea Zone 37 and you still have two battleships, two carriers, the US is likely to build for a turn, maybe two turns before they push out and head towards the Solomon Islands or out to Wake or whatever it is that they decide that they want to do. That's a lot of tempo to give away for the Japanese that are just pouring, units to Burma and staging for a, J3, J4 pile into India, while the Germans are pushing on Moscow. So I am not a fan of the Pearl Harbor attack. I think it overcommits too many Japanese forces. But
I,
that's
th- I
just me.
think it's I think it's a great counterpoint. I mean, you can realistically put a lot of pressure on India, Calcutta, the victory city there on round three, particularly round four. And I think you can forego the American Navy if you're planning on doing that and putting really fast pressure and taking it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Calcutta Crush. Um,
Yeah.
and that squeeze play that we talked about when we played the Axis, and was it? I think it was our third match, the semifinal, or maybe it was the
It was
quarterfinal. I
the
can't.
second.
Yeah, with that kind of squeeze play where you push against the Russians and then you squeeze to the center. So it's kind of to borrow the chess metaphor. Okay, so now a puzzle, my friends. So the everyone wants. So okay, I have a confession. Yesterday, I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole, and as I was preparing for today's live stream, I got into a line of thinking about how the Allies could have turned this around. Right? How could they have won this game even after so many bad rolls and so many kind of tactical troubles? So here's what I came up with, and first, let me ask this question to the general audience here: do you think the Allies should have resigned when they did? They US-4, they basically blasted the fleet into the Japanese fleet. They were pretty big underdogs in that fight, and even if they won it, I'm not sure it was going to make a difference to the game. So I'm curious: do you think that they should have resigned? Were you surprised when they resigned? Um, and I'm curious what the thinking is here. And so while I'm waiting for that, there is one comment that I wanted to jump back to, which was Aaron. Aaron, I didn't like it when you switched to the summary mode. So I didn't like it either. I'm not gonna lie. So So two reasons why I did that. The first is that we try to keep those videos to about an hour, and we were already at, as I was editing it, I was already at about 58, 59 minutes before the intro outro were going to be added. Plus, from that moment on, it became clear that the Allies were not going to win the game. Now we're going to see a way that they maybe would have been able to turn it around and have won that game, but it was clear from the video that I was watching how they were talking to themselves, how they were kind of down on themselves, and they were clearly in what I call quicksand. Quicksand is one thing goes wrong, and then another thing, and then another thing, and then the next thing you know, you can't think your way out of the situation that you're in because you're so wrapped up in the negativity of that moment. And this happens to world-class athletes. It happens to board game players. It happens to lots and lots of people. And I could tell that that's where they were. Now, mind you, I know the Allied players in this match. And you'll notice that we did not name them in the video. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One, nobody really likes to celebrate their losses typically. And two, like, everybody has a bad game. And that, that isn't the game that I want blasted out to the Axis and Allies community. So we left them, we did not include them in the video. And we made every effort as much as possible to acknowledge that Doug and I have played both of those guys before. And I lost a game to one of them. And so they're good players. They just had a bad game. So
they, when I was in the early workings of the Thorpe thumb, they, after seeing me play it a time or two, they used it against me, and I didn't know how to beat it at that point, and they whooped me.
Right.
So I was like, what? Use my strategy against me. Exactly. It was me and my brother playing in a tournament.
Right. So both of those guys are really good players. And like I said, man, I said it in the video and I'll say it again. Gen Con is a lot of fun. And I hope everybody that's interested to play in a tournament absolutely comes and plays with us. But by the time you get to Sunday morning at 8 a.m., your brain is goo, man. Like, it is hard. You really have, it takes all the concentration that you can muster, mister, to be able to not make seemingly silly mistakes. So it is a tricky environment to play in. General Sap here, he calls me out here. When I hear quicksand, I always think of the replacements. Yes, that is absolutely where I got that term. So yes, good call. Well played, sir. Very good. So, all right. So now let's walk through. Let's see if I can do this now. Again, same thing's going to happen here. We're going to go full screen, but so we won't be on the thing, but you should be able to hear me. I hope that this works. Well, so this is the first time of trying this, so we'll see what happens. All right. So we're going to share the screen. And now we're going to take this guy. All right. So I'm hoping this is working and that everyone can see me or can see the screen here. I'm going to jump out of this just to make sure that is working.
Okay. I can see it. It was fine.
Yep. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, almost. Yeah, no, that works. All right, so here we go. Sorry, making sure. Just testing the thing here. Okay, so here we are. This is the end of Japan's turn. So this is right before the U.S. decides to shove everything into C-Zone 61. And they've got 5 fighters, 2 bombers for air units that are in the area, and some transport with some guys in C-Zone 44. Okay, so what they opted to do is they sent everything into 61 and basically blew up the fleet and then resigned the game. And it was kind of like, let's run these 2 fleets into each other and see what happens. And that's kind of how the game ended. So looking at this situation, can we see a way for the Allies to win this game? So this is one of the things I love about this game, because there's always these kinds of puzzles that are out there. So at the end of Japan 4, the Allies are in the lead because the UK took Rome, so it's 7-6. And so now when we look at the US's turn, now we're going to start walking through a way that the Allies could have won this game. So ironically, this is actually what they purchased. in the game, and they bought 3 bombers, which is absolutely what I would do because
Right
they can't
buy.
really do it. Yeah, solid purchase, particularly because it's the only thing that can reach anything useful. So now for combat moves. Of course, they're going to send the transport in from 44 into 48 and take Manila. Got to do it. So they take Manila, and there's no Japanese units there. So they can absolutely do it. Now, one thing that's critical here is Japan, at the end of their turn, made a critical mistake. The only land units that they have access to are the ones that are in Yunnan. There are no land units in Japan. And they can't get to the guy in Okinawa and have it be useful, right? So if you can attack and destroy all of those units in Yunnan, then Japan has no units to go and take Manila back, which is a problem. So you send in the 4 fighters from the carriers that are in 48 and both bombers. The bomber from India, the bomber from New Guinea, and the fighter that's in India doesn't move. It stays where it is. So you've got 4 fighters, 2 bombers versus an infantry, 3 artillery, 2 tanks. Your 76% chance to wipe this out here. And even if you fail, there are still UK units in the area that might be able to pick off a last guy. But let's assume mutual destruction here. All the air units are destroyed. All of the land units are destroyed. So all of that's gone now. So Japan has no ability to take Calcutta, to take Manila, to do anything other than buy and reload. And by that time, the game is over, right? Because they've only got 1 turn left. So all that's destroyed. All those guys are destroyed. Just as a matter of, I don't know, safety, use the destroyers and spread out to keep that fleet contained, just so in case there's something going on, they won't be able to do anything with it. And then, of course, the fighter that's in India needs to make its way back up to Russia because you also are going to have to hold Moscow. So they place their units. They don't place them in Western United States, which is what they did here. Instead, you move the transport with the 2 guys up to Eastern Canada, and the 3 bombers land in Eastern United States. Because you'll notice that the UK was clever and took Northwestern Europe. And they still control it, which means that the American bombers in the Eastern United States can hit Paris and also land in Northwest Europe. So they can get there now with the guy, the artillery, and 3 bombers. So at the end of the round, the Allies are now at 8. The Axis are at 5. Okay, so let's see what they can do now. So the Russians, for their turn, they started the turn, I believe, at 21 or 22 IPCs. So they get 6 infantry and 1 artillery. And then they have no combat because they can't seem to roll any dice in this game. So it's better just to not roll dice if you can't roll them, right? So instead, what they do is they move everything back into Moscow. So by the time they get there, that's 19 infantry, 8 artillery, 6 fighters, a bomber, and 2 AA guns. So you'll notice the little FTR there. That's the American fighter that came in from India. Okay, this is a serious defensive position. This is not a pushover in Moscow. So now when we look at the Germans, they start this turn with 44 IPCs, right? So what have they got to do? Well, what should they do? Of course, they absolutely have to take Rome, and they're going to need to take Moscow because they're down. They need at least 2 victory cities to turn the tide here, to get back to 7-6. And they can't lose anything, right? So how do they get to Moscow? So they've got 11 infantry, 15 tanks, 6 fighters, 4 bombers that can reach Russia. Okay. When you put all that together, this is the battle. Okay, and their odds of success are 69%. This is not a number that I'd be excited about when the game is on the line. Okay, and if they do that, they have to clear out Karelia, and the UK can get there with 5 infantry and artillery, 2 tanks, and offshore shots from the battleship and from the cruiser. So that's a lot. So let's say you just what if you don't send everything to Moscow? You're probably going to want to leave some stuff in Karelia to make sure that it doesn't fall. So you're at 69% now. If you take out 2 fighters, you drop to 43%. You can't really afford to come out of sending everything into Moscow. So, oh, and by the way, when you go to take Rome, and if you want to take Northwestern Europe, you have to do it with no air units. So you've got to commit those land units to taking Rome, to taking Northwestern Europe, if that's what you decide to do. So it gets a little tricky. So we're going to keep a close eye on whether or not Karelia is the way to go. They're going to take Rome. The other thing is that if there is a bit of a long shot here. You'll notice that there's an infantry still available to that transport in Egypt. They can pop down there, pick it up, and come back. And if they, if the bomber should happen to survive coming out of Russia, then they can certainly get in there. But they also have to be aware that now there's the potential for a 1-2 punch coming into Paris. The UK can get there with all of their units. And if Northwestern Europe is still available, the Americans can get there with a considerable force. So they've got to be able to protect Rome, Paris, and Karelia while taking Russia. This is not a simple choice. So if you're going to go into Rome, you're going to take 2 infantry, 2 artillery versus the 1 infantry, 1 artillery there for a 96% chance. If you're going to go into Northwestern Europe, you can do the same thing, presumably, so that you can be sure to take it, which is going to leave you with about 7 infantry and 2 artillery, 2 AA guns rather, assuming 1 moves over from Berlin into Paris. So does that stand up against the UK as it is? Sort of. 60% chance the UK takes it by themselves, which is not great. So what if you leave the Northwestern Europe units alone? That means that 2 more infantry are coming in, but you have more units to defend. So odds are you're going to stand up there because you're only giving the UK an 18% chance of success. But when that's over, you're probably only going to have 3 infantry, 2 artillery left. And here come the Americans. And they've got an infantry and artillery and 3 bombers that can land in Northwestern Europe because you opted not to take it. Odds of success for the Americans here, 80%. So this is a very winnable position. Obviously, the most direct route to victory here is for the UK to swing in here and try to take Karelia. And if they're there with the statistical coming from survival from Moscow is that they'll probably have 3 fighters, maybe 2 bombers left over. Assume those all make it back to Leningrad. There's still only 45% to hold. So this is, and that's, sorry, I've also now added in the 2 fighters that assume that the Germans bought. So this is where that game ends at the end of round 5. If you can take Karelia, you're holding Manila. Axis are going to take Rome back for sure, but you're down Moscow. Even if you lost Moscow, right? You're down Moscow, but you're up Manila. That's the ball game. So Karelia is not actually captured here. This would be liberated, but I put the asterisk there because it's liberated, but Moscow's in German hands, so they can't control it. So the UK would control it. So it is kind of captured. But at any rate, this is an Allied victory. So I don't know, Doug, what do you think of that? I mean, does this feel like, am I a crazy person, or should the Allies have continued to play through here?
I think if it's before attacking Japan's Navy, the Allies play on. If it's after attacking Japan's Navy, then resigning is the right decision. I think it just goes to show that, as solid as your position can feel sometimes. And I thought the guys who played the Axis did very well this game. Like, just one misstep, like not having something on that transport, completely turns this game on its head, or no land units in Japan completely turns this game on its head. So yeah, I mean, I think they play on. I think there's maybe a couple of things that Germany could do to to better their odds. But like I would, if I were the German player, I would probably, I don't know, maybe like drop a destroyer in the Baltic so that the cruiser and battleship couldn't bombard Karelia or my capital. I don't know. I have to math it out a little bit. You know, that may be almost better, even though it's $8. Would that be better than a fighter on the land to protect Karelia? I don't know. There's a couple things there. Maybe the infantry from Archangel doesn't go into the fight. I don't know what being down one infantry does in the capital, but it goes to Karelia to defend. So I think there's a couple things they could do. But yeah, it's a really tight situation, and I think it just goes to show that when you have units in a lot of different places that can cause a lot of different mayhem, you just really gotta watch yourself and be really careful, because what seems like a slam dunk can quickly turn into something going the opposite direction.
Yes, and I apparently I'm upside down, and I don't know why.
You're upside down.
We're coming back
This
to the show.
analysis
I don't know why
you
I'm upside down. This program is beyond me sometimes. All right, so a couple of thoughts from the folks here. Steve Thorpe, he thinks that they should have continued and go after the land units in Japan instead of the Navy. I don't. So based on the fact that they put their land units in range of air units twice earlier, I don't think that they were connecting the idea that air units can attack land units, right, and do it effectively. So I think that is something that is a little bit confusing for some folks. So it's certainly something that you almost only see in tournament play.
Yeah, you're usually not taking $15 bombers or even $10 fighters that attack at a 3 and attacking $3 infantry that defend at a 2. But when you're in key situations in the game, like, it doesn't matter if the Allies have those American airplanes left anymore. All you have to do is kill the Japanese land units and you potentially win. And vice versa. Japan bombing those guys on, what was it, Okinawa with the bombers. It's like, I'll do that all day long. Just get rid of those guys and they can't take any of your stuff.
Right. Yeah, they are worth. They're probably the most important units to the Americans in the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Without them, they can't really get anywhere. John's got a question here. After the fighters attack Moscow, can some of them land in Karelia? Absolutely. But you will also have to have at least one of your tanks left in order to take the territory, which means that you're probably going to start losing fighters or bombers going into the final rounds of combat there. And the outcomes that I've predicted there are from a battle calculator that I'll link in the comments after this is over. It's pretty handy, actually. And it shows that the most likely outcome is probably the 3 fighters and 2 bombers surviving, depending on the order of loss and so forth. So yes, some of them could have gotten there, but not enough to stand up to the full move from the UK. So yeah, I mean, it was, to me, there was enough of a shot of winning. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these never resign people, right? I'm not one of these people. I don't rage quit games, but I will say that, like, if I get to a position where, like, I don't flip the table, I don't do that.
You've thought about it, though.
Oh yeah, I've given it some serious consideration, but no, I'm not a rage quitter. But if I can look at the board and I can see, yeah, this game is over, I'm not one to drag it all the way out and make you beat me on the board. But in this instance, I think that there was enough there that it would have been worth playing on. So, but yeah, that's a good question, John. Thank you. All right. Boy, this is kind of a classic question, right? Strategic bombing still a strategy. I've heard people say both good and bad for it. Doug?
Okay, so I'm not going to get the math exactly right on this, but I would say in general, as a principle, you don't do it in tournaments. If you think about it, a bomber costs 12. You get one die. On average, you're going to roll 3. So it takes 4 successful bombing runs to get the money back from the bomber. And again, I don't remember the exact odds, but chances are your bomber will get shot down before you successfully do that 4th bombing run. Or at least there's more than a 50% chance. Again, maybe it's like 60, 70% chance. So it's like you're risking it 50% chance to do $12 worth of damage versus more than a 50% chance to lose $12. In general, it's not worth it. Now, I think situationally it can be. One example is in Anniversary Edition. If you're familiar with that, Italy has a very small economy. Since they're only making $10 per turn, I think if you're bombing a power like that, and you're just like, if you bomb them, and even if you take 2 bombers in there and you do 6 damage to them, suddenly it's like they would only have $4 left if they rebuilt that. And effectively, they're building an infantry or an artillery. So I think it can be situational, maybe grinding Russia down toward the end. But again, usually you're just better off attacking the Russian capital with those bombers rather than bombing them. Because a couple of infantry I would rather, if I'm attacking the Russian capital, I'd rather them have 2 more infantry and me have 2 more bombers than me to bomb them and take $6 away from them. So those are just kind of my surface level thoughts.
Yeah, so I agree with the last bit of what you said there. To me, it's a game mechanic that is in the game to stop the turtling, right? So if Japan gets to a place where they realize that they're not going to win and they're going to hope to wait for the Germans, then they can just buy guys and buy guys and buy guys and a fighter and a bunch of guys, until they have just this massive stack of guys. And the answer to that is to buy 6 bombers. And then you start, because you can afford to lose them at that point.
Yes.
Right? So you can all of a sudden, now you do 15 points, 14 points, whatever, of damage to the Japanese industrial complex, and they can't build anything this turn because that's all of their money. Or you can do the same thing in Berlin, right? Germany decides to turtle up and they're just going to buy guys, and they've already got a bunch of guys there. So instead of messing around with all of that, you just send in a bunch of bombers and wait until you can economically overwhelm them. Again, this is one of these situations where it's like, somebody asked a question the other day, why does Axis and Allies not have an atomic bomb? Where's the A-bomb in A&A? And this is
they do. It's heavy bombers in Classic.
Right. But it's also strategic bombing rates, right? Now you're not gonna drop 1 bomb and make the entire space unoccupiable or whatever the rules are. Though, fun little trivia note, in the Nova Games version, way back in, I think, 1981, that game does have rules for an atomic bomb in it. It's part of the research and development process. It's actually the game-ending technique, which is pretty interesting. So anyway, so to me, I would never do it in tournament play. I wouldn't do it in casual play until I got to a place where I just need to blow them up, right? I've got a big stack and I've got enough units in place that I can take them, but I want to stop them from building so that I can get 1 build ahead of them, 2 builds ahead of them, so that when I go in, I'm 92, 95% successful. So, and then on the turn where I'm attacking, of course, then the bombers are not part of that attack. So it's certainly to me, that's the purpose of that mechanic. Now, there are strategies out there that go to exploit this earlier in the game, something called Green Skies, where the Americans buy nothing but bombers, and then it's a kill Germany first strategy. But I would never try to use it in tournament play because it takes time, right? And it's just not enough. The Axis start with so much material that if you try to win economically from jump, you're not going to get there. So anyway, so that is kind of the.
That's a good question.
That is a good question, Matt. Thank you very much. All right.
I will say when people bomb me and I can't shoot their bombers down, it's the most annoying thing in the world. I'm like, are you kidding me? You rolled 2 5s and a 6 and I can't shoot you.
Right. All right. So what's on deck coming up next month? First, let me make sure that everyone is aware that in 2023, when Doug and I won the World Championship, 1942 Second Edition, the subject of this week's video, was the World Championship event. In 2024, it became the anniversary edition of the game. Okay, so starting not the 3rd, but the 8th of January, I believe, is when it should be. The first one will be published to the membership, and then it'll be available to the public on the 9th. So if you're interested in early access to these videos, feel free to consider becoming a member. We appreciate that. And so we'll have 4 matches from the World Championship, and that will feature the anniversary edition, which is this big mamma jamma right here. So if this was under your Christmas tree, you had a good Christmas. I tell you that.
That's right.
So yeah. So all right. So yeah. So we've got 4 videos from that coming out, and we should be able to have those on time for everybody, which is good, which is exciting. Those will be sponsored by our friends at Renegade Game Studios, and we should have lots of that to go. And let's see, what else have we got here? Yes. And this is what happens every time I've actually tried to do this. Losing bombers, when you first buy them in a raid, is the worst, in my opinion. Yeah, that is, yes. No,
Yeah.
I will say the worst I've seen with bombers before is I sent in 3 bombers. They rolled 3 1s. Friends, I've worked in casinos for a long time, and I can tell you from my experience that the odds of that are 212 to 1.
That's brutal.
Yes, that is not a lot of fun. Okay, so this is a good question. Matt, you're full of good questions today. Well done, sir. I would give you the glockenspiel, but I can't find my thing. Anyway, so there it is, the manual glockenspiel. That's not going well. I'm new to the tournament side. How many turns or how much time are in tournaments? 1942 Second Edition plays in 5 hours, which is the game that we just played here and the game that Doug and I played in the World Championship in 2023. For Anniversary, they get a little bit longer. They get 5 hours and 45 minutes, and I think they get 15 minutes to play over there, so it's right at 6 hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then Global, they play 10, if I remember correctly. Is that right? I think it's 10 for Global.
I was thinking it was 8.
Oh, no, John says here it's 9.
9.
9 hours, yeah.
We're both wrong.
Right. So, and you've won that event before.
Well,
yeah.
I was like the caboose. I was like that little thing where you push up and down that goes behind the caboose. That's what I was.
So they also want to know how many people were at the tournament. Probably, yeah, probably. John's right here. So about over 100 in 3 days, probably 150, 200 people watching and playing at the peak times. Yeah, that's probably right. Between all the different events, there's a 42 Second Edition, there's an anniversary event, there's a global event, but there's also, they also were playing War Room. They played Imperial Borders, which is the new game coming out, which I'm super excited about. That's gonna be a ton of fun. They were also playing Axis and Allies miniatures at sea or War at Sea. I can't remember what that's called.
Yeah, North Africa was going on.
Yeah, the North Africa was happening.
Casual games, stuff like that.
John was teaching people how to play G.I. Joe. So yeah, it's a big event. So that one, yeah, that's probably right. About 150, 200 people. There's a lot.
The number of rounds is variable. Depends on how fast the play is. I would personally say you should get 6 rounds in per game. Games have seemed to slow down a little bit of late, and it's like getting 5 rounds in seems to be pretty average. But there's not a set number of rounds. It's just the set time.
Yeah, and this is something that we've been trying to make some moves in. I'd really like to see clocks added because right now it's a shared time pool. So everyone that's playing in that round of 42-second or global or whatever, they're all playing with the same shared clock. So there isn't any accountability for somebody playing slow and taking more time. I think that there should be clocks that go with that. But if you're here and you're enjoying the conversation, thank you for being here. We've got almost 80 people here. Fantastic. If you're enjoying this, please take a second, hit that like button for us, and drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. I know we've got folks, a lot of people from the West and the Mountain time zone today, which is great. So we're happy to see you guys there. Fantastic. And there's a couple friends from Australia are on. Thank you all for being here. Matt's got a good question here. Another good question from Matt. Matt, you're doing great. Are tournaments live on Twitch or YouTube to be able to watch? No, we're the only ones that cover this event. And so if you are interested in learning more about these tournaments and these events, please let us know. One of the things that we are going to be doing probably in February is, as you saw earlier, if you were watching when we played that little highlight reel or that little clip from the game, we do record the games live so that we can bring that video back and use it to recreate the games in the studio. But we don't release those to the public, mostly because the quality isn't spectacular, but it's enough that you could see what's going on. So what we may be doing in February is editing those videos down so that maybe set them up as a time lapse so that they can be played, so that you can watch the entire thing 5 hours worth or 6 hours worth, whatever version is that we're playing, so that you could watch it all in, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on a time lapse with music. So I guess that's a good question for the audience here. If you were going to watch this, would you want to watch it at normal speed, or would you want to watch it as a time lapse? Some people love to watch. Like, to me, it's like watching paint dry. I hate watching people think, but man, it just makes me crazy. But some people really like it. They like just the background noise of the Gen Con and the conversation between the folks and whatever. So I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Would you rather see a time lapse, or would you rather watch the whole thing all the way through? You're saying
I don't want the dumb things that I say being released to the public.
I know. Well, see, that's part of the other thing. I mean, we do put up a big sign that audio and video, recording is in progress. So yeah, it's a balance, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's fun to hear the harebrained ideas that don't get executed. Maybe, hey, what if we do this? Let's not.
Right, exactly. We'll watch it at half speed, so it'll be 12 hours to watch the.
Yeah.
No.
Painful.
You know how long that would take to upload? Here's the question of the day. Gen Con is obviously the largest convention and the best place to hold a world championship, but are there Axis and Allies tournaments at other gaming conventions? Dave, I would love to tell you that the answer to this question was yes, but at the moment, there are very few events that are happening, and most of them are Axis and Allies only events. Right. So Greg Smory, the guy who runs the event at Gen Con, he also runs a thing called the Spring Gathering. It's in Wilder, Kentucky, which is like a suburb of Cincinnati. And that's in June. It's usually like Father's Day weekend.
Yeah.
And it's a 2 days? Yeah, Friday, Saturday. It's a 2-day event over there, and that's fun. And then there's a couple of variants that are out there that are very popular and hold a couple of events. One is called BBR, Bloodbath Rules, I think is what the acronym stands for. And that is the global edition with a lot of overlaid rules. And it's a fun variation, but it's a lot. The other variant is something I haven't played yet. It's called the Young Grasshopper variant, and that they've got an event in Dayton, and they also have Operation Seagull, which is in Utah, and that is believe they're in. I think they're in Provo. I'm not 100%. It's either Provo or Salt Lake, one or the other. But yeah, so that's fun. So yeah,
Greg,
and
Greg used to also run an Axis and Allies tournament at Origins, but I don't think he's done that for, maybe 4 or 5 years or something like that.
yeah, and
Maybe.
there used to be an ANA event at World Board Gaming Championships in Pittsburgh, but they haven't done anything in there for quite some time. So yeah, it is something that we are looking at very closely. We are talking to our friends at the World Series of Board Gaming in Las Vegas. We're thinking about Adepticon. We are thinking about there's an event in DC called Circle D, I think is what it's called, and it's put on by the guy who makes Swords of Tripoli, Kevin Bertram, and it's apparently a very cool event. This year, apparently, it's going to be inside of the Shakespearean Historical Society. I don't know. Sounds like a kind of a fun venue, but so we're talking to some of those folks, and hopefully we'll be able to have some announcements about that relatively soon. But stay tuned. Stay in that space because we definitely want something up in the Northeast because I know there's a lot of people up there that are looking for something. I know there's some folks out west, and there's a lot of action in the Midwest. A lot of guys in Wisconsin, a lot of guys in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Missouri. Lots of guys in Missouri. So I know that there's certainly an appetite for it. So we'll see. We'll watch this space, Dave. Thanks for the question.
Maybe we need to do something in Louisville. Nice and centralized ish.
You know anybody lives there?
Yeah, it works for me.
Right. Yeah, that's Louisville might be an interesting choice actually. That's not a bad idea. And it's not a terribly expensive city either, so that might be
Really not.
So really what it comes down to though is do we want to have a standalone event or do we want to try to get into a convention? The advantage of being in a convention is that they have everything, right?
Mhm.
Like all you have to do is really just show up with the games and whatever, and you can set it up. You can run your tournament. But if you're running a standalone event, now you got to talk about a hotel block and making sure that all the details that go
Yep.
with it. So it's a little bit tricky, but anyway, a very good question. All right. Oh, Alex is actually coming to us from Norway. So Alex, dude, this is absolutely what I would love to see. I would love to. So, so we call ourselves world champions, right? Because the event that we won was a world championship, and you could bet your bottom dollar that the week after we came home with the trophies, which are the week after we came home with the trophies, my wife was required. I would not answer to anything other than world champion for about a week. And my wife thought it was just about as much fun as you could imagine. But yeah, it is a. But one of the comments that we got, particularly from our friends in Europe, was, "Is it a world championship if the only people in it were Americans?" Yes, I'd like to completely acknowledge the American tendency to call things a world championship and then be the only ones in it. I do believe that there were some Canadians there, though. I think there were some Canadians, and there were a couple of French guys that came and I think they walked by. I'm not sure that they played, but they're invited. Everyone's invited. But what I would love to see though is our national championships or maybe a European championship. That perhaps comes with a prize that brings you to the world championship. I would love to see. I'd love to see an Anzac championship, right, where there's a lot of great and really enthusiastic ANA players down there that are really trying to put that community together, and I would love to help them in any way that we can. But I would love to see, an Anzac championship and have them come up to Gen Con. So yeah, I would love to have that. and there's Canadians there, and we can have them come too. So I think it's fun, but it should be fun. Santo Domingo, very nice. Thanks for being here, Charles. Charles and Charles. All right. What do you got, Doug?
Um, I think one thing that just we kind of alluded to this at the very beginning, so I'm going all the way back to the very beginning. But one thing I thought was very interesting about these games in this 1942 tournament is the bids. We alluded to this earlier, but didn't really talk about it. I would say the last couple of years, the bid has gone on average to the Allies 5 or 6 points, but we saw several bids go to the Axis. And in this game, the final, it was 5 to the Axis. So I think that's just an interesting, kind of change in the meta, and it popped up a number of times in this. The bids were considerably more spread out and less consistent. So I think that was kind of fun to see and cool for the game itself, because it just allows for that variation. I like the bidding process in tournaments. I think it's a really clever way of letting teams decide who they're willing to take and what they're willing to take them for. So,
Yeah, I remember when I first saw the Access bid for 5, I was like, and then like after I saw it, I had never really considered what I would do with it, right? Because I'd never really considered getting an Access bid, but there it was, and I think that the AA gun was in Ukraine was a really good choice, and it actually, of course, it happens to work out for him, which is great. It does take down one of the Russian fighters in that first, man, in what was a precursor to just God mode dice versus dice that apparently were blank on all 6 sides. So, but anyway, but no, I think that was really interesting. Actually, Alex did say something interesting here that I didn't know. There have been ANA tournaments at a gaming convention in Oslo every summer. Alex, send me the information for this tournament, please. You can find it. You can reach through the Facebook page, or you can drop the information in one of the comments. I usually get through those as quickly as I can. I'd love to know more about this tournament and how that works, and what you guys are doing, and how many folks you're getting, and what that would look like. Because we'd love to know more about that for sure. And if there are other tournaments happening around the world that we're not familiar with, Santo Domingo or down in Australia, please let us know. We'd love to know more about those things. That's a great profile picture, by the way, Alex. That's pretty great.
Did you see Charles' comment above that about the one in California, Tragicon?
Yes. I forgot about this. Yeah, Strategicon.
Strategicon? Strategery?
Strategicon. I don't know what it is. Yeah, so I know that they do the Guadalcanal tournament here every year. Dave Jensen's won this a couple times from accessandallies.org. And I don't know how many people they get for it. Charles, how many people go to that? I'd love to know more about that. And that might be, is this in LA? I think this is in LA. Or, I don't know. Tell me more about this, Charles, because I would love to know more about that. But yeah. How repetitive can get the openings and following turns in a game with fixed setups like this one versus variable setup games? Doug, what do you think?
I think the Russian opening is pretty set. There's not much variation in that, but I do think things change fairly quickly after that. I think there's a good variation really with all the rest of the powers. I mean, I think there's certain things that everyone wants to do, but the Season 37 battle with Britain is a pretty significant one. Some people like to go for that. Some people don't. Some people think getting the destroyer and transport off the coast of, is it off of Shanghai, I think, in that version, is pretty significant to do with Britain instead of killing the you're pointing at something. I don't know what you're doing.
Me. I'm saying that. Yes.
Oh,
You're saying
yeah, yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah.
I'm saying I am one of those people.
Yeah. So there's, when you get to Britain, things are different. America has big decisions. Are you going to do kill Germany first, kill Japan first? I've seen Japan try to press north through Russia, try to do the Calcutta Crush, like Gary's talked about, try to press through China. Like, I feel like there's variations other than that. I think it's just really Russia one that's pretty set.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think that the Russians are pretty set, but then after that it does because the die. Well, even if you're playing the same basic strategies, that's why we roll the dice, right? So it's going to cause different pressure points to break away or to hold in an unexpected moment, right? So you know, that's part of why the dice are part of this game. So awesome. Well, thanks for the question, Ignacio. All right. Charles tells us that Strategericon is in LA. Thank you, Charles. And Alex says that the convention in Norway is called Archon. And it's apparently been running for 40 years. And he won it in 1995. Congratulations. 31 years, 29 years ago.
Well done.
Well done, sir. So I guess in 95 you would have been playing Revised? Or were you playing Classic? I don't know. Either way, that's cool. I'd love to see what else there is to know about that. It's pretty cool. More about Strategericon. I haven't been in a few years, but the last time they had 8 to 10 teams or so, and they have one over President's Day, one over Memorial Day, and the other one is some other time of the year. So they do 3 events there. Wow, okay. And wow, that's a lot, actually. That's more than I thought was going on out there. That's pretty cool. That's good to know. Sounds like I need to connect with Dave. Let's see. Who runs this? Does Dave Jensen run this or is somebody else running this? I don't know. I'd love to know more about that. Landon, is there a specific reason why they do the 42 setup and anniversary edition for tournament play versus the 41? Is it because the axes are behind by quite a bit? Not really. This is about time. The 41 version is designed to play longer, and we want to be able to get to some kind of resolution in 6 hours in that tournament setup. So this is why they choose the 42 setup. Now, we're going to talk more about this when we get into the anniversary videos and the live streams that follow those. But I feel like the Japanese opening is for anniversary it's almost, for me anyway, it's almost as scripted as the Russian opening is in 42 second edition, right? You've got to kill the UK fleet. You've got to take out the American fighter. And unless you get some bid that steers you to do something else, then I think that those are, anyway, so we're going to talk more about that. But that's why they do the 42 setup.
I think the 42 setup is also really balanced.
Yeah.
I mean, there's often effectively no bid, a bid of 2, maybe a bid of 3 or 4, in anniversary edition. I'm not saying hasn't gone higher, but it's pretty balanced also.
Yeah. There's a couple of games that we covered in this series that were where there was no bid, where it was even, which is pretty unusual. So, but yeah, thanks for the question, Landon. Yeah, Charles tells me that it is Dave Jensen. We'll have to reach out to him and see what that's about. Do you have to have a team? This is a good question, actually. Thank you, General. This is General Richard Sapp. Thank you for being here, Richard. Do you have to have a team for the tournaments, or can you play solo? Different tournaments run differently. I have played in tournaments solo before, but in some instances, if like the tournament's getting close to being sold out and there are multiple solo players, they may put you together to play as a team, which is fine. It's a nice way to meet somebody new. But I prefer to either play alone or to play with somebody that I've prepared with. Doug and I, going into the 42nd edition tournament, probably played 15 games, talking about the strategies that we were going to use and what we were going to expect to have from opponents and so forth. But then I also played solo and made it to the final in 22. So it's it can be done. You don't have to come with a partner, but you may get partnered up, I guess, is the short answer to that question. So
Yeah, my first tournament, I got partnered with a guy that I didn't know.
yeah. Do I go for Pearl Harbor as well? Oh, in anniversary? Yeah, probably. Just because it's. So I just had a little blip in my software here. We're hoping that we don't drop here. We'll see what happens. Do I go for Pearl Harbor? Yes, because they've got a little bit less material there, and there's a little bit more Japanese material that can reach there than in 42nd edition. So, yeah, I would say that I would go for that as well. But there is some variation there because there are more units that can get there. So you can clear the territory without committing everything. So there's a couple of different options there. But yeah, I would say that the fleet off of India, Pearl Harbor, the American fighter and Yunnan, those to me are all must hits on Japan 1. But yeah.
I think an interesting nuance there is if you hit Pearl with the Japanese Navy in round 1 of anniversary, depending on how hard the Americans hit back, if your sub survives, there's not a destroyer off the west coast of the US. So it's just interesting. I mean, often you'll take the sub, it's the cheapest unit as an early casualty, but sometimes it works out where you have the sub out there and the Americans can't chase it away.
Right. Steve, boy, this is a good question, Steve. Has playing Axis and Allies got you interested in learning more World War II history? Yeah, I think so. I think that I'll be entirely honest here. What'll end up happening is I'll make a move or I'll see a move, and somebody will say that's exactly like this thing, and they'll make the historical reference, and then I'll have to go look it up because I didn't know that particular little nugget of history or whatever. So yeah, so in those instances, it does. I don't like not knowing something when somebody makes some reference like that. So it causes me to go do more research. But I mean, I also like the different movies and documentaries and Tom Hanks, blanket World War II documentaries that are just kind of really well done and really interesting stories and so forth. So yeah, I think so too. Doug, has it inspired you to learn more about World War II?
Yeah, it's a little hard to say which came first. I've been a World War II buff for a while, and I think Axis and Allies plays into that, but I think that plays into Axis and Allies. I'm not the type of person who, other than maybe like the Battle of Midway and a few other specific kind of big name battles, I don't know tons of the details. So I'm not the guy who's making those references across the board, but I still enjoy it. I would love to go to the beaches of Normandy and see France and that whole area of Europe. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yep. A while back, I had the opportunity to interview Larry Harris, and he talked about going to all these battlefields and just like the power of those places was really influential on him in his younger life, and so yeah, it's been. So yeah, I would love to go and do that as well. I think that would be very, very cool. Charles has a response to us. I found that taking Pearl as well requires a bid to Japan to help take the U.S. fighter, so a tank bid. Do you know what he means by that?
Yeah, I'm sure he's talking about the fighter in Yunnan, because you have to commit more air out to Pearl in order to get that US fighters, what I think he's saying.
Yeah. I'd say.
Because I think you have to. I think it's the bomber. You can go one way or the other, and then one of the fighters also. Is it? No, it's not Formosa. Yeah, maybe it's just the bomber.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into all the anniversary stuff next time, but yes, but that's a really good point, Charles. Thank you. Yeah, so Richard makes a good point here, and now we're getting into anniversary a little bit more than we had originally planned. But in the anniversary edition, India does not start with an industrial complex, and this really slows down the kill Japan first strategies that come with this, because India can't build that first turn, and so they have to spend 15 IPCs to build a complex in India if they're going to. And if I'm looking at what they start with there, it's 3 infantry, an AA gun, and that's it. And so if you get a bid and you put a tank in Burma, you're favored to take India on turn 1. So yeah, I don't know. Like, if there was anything going to make me forego taking out the Flying Tiger, to use the World War II proper terminology, I hope that I got that right. So if there was anything going to make me forego taking out that American fighter there, it would be the ability to take India, because, man, that just takes a huge leg out from underneath the Allied players right at the top. And so, yeah, I don't know. But you're absolutely right, Richard. The missing factory there really slows down the Allies. Next. All right. Jon Bosch just dropped the link to Greg Smorey's website where all the tournament rules are. So if you're curious what the rules are for 42nd Global Anniversary, North Africa, whatever, then you can follow that link right there. Again, we're 33 members right now, and if we get to 40, then we'll be giving away that guy right there. The rule book from 1984's Axis and Allies, the first edition of the classic edition. And it is, as you might be able to see there, it is scribbled on by the one and only Larry Harris, and which I think is pretty cool. Pretty fun stuff. So if we're interested in that, if that's something you'd like to add to your collection, you can click the join button, which is at the bottom of this video and any one of our videos, or you can go to boardgamenation.com and find the join button there. Lots of fun things coming up. Oh, let me hold on. Let me see if I can find it real quick. We have something fun coming up in February that we want to remind everybody about. We talked a little bit about it last time, but we've got a special event: Gary and Doug versus the world. You guys think you're good at this game? Bring it. So here's what we're doing. Yes, it's exactly as ridiculous as it sounds. So
I was gonna say, we think we're good at this game. We might find out that's not true.
I hope not. Right? Right. Yeah. Hey, Carl. Welcome. Trolling the web. Good to see you, Carl.
What's up, Carl?
And thanks for dropping by. So Gary and Doug versus the world.
Yes.
Right. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to play 42nd edition just to get it started off. We're going to play tournament rules, and we're going to spend, by tournament rules, I mean we're going to assume that the game's going to play 5 rounds. Okay. And maybe 6. Doug wants to play 6. We'll play 6. Okay, fine. We'll play 6. So
depends on Axis of the Allies. We'll decide after.
That's right. We'll have to bid first. So basically, here's what's going to happen. So we're going to play against the world. And here's how this works. We're going to pick a few members of Board Game Nation, and they will be our enemy generals. Okay, so everyone's gonna. So let's say for the moment that we're gonna play the allies, if that's just how it happens to work out. We'll pick one of our opposing generals and we'll bid, just so that we can land on something that follows the tournament rules. And this is also a really great opportunity for new players to kind of get involved and to kind of see the thinking. So what'll happen then? Russia will make its first turn. Assume that we're the allies. Russia will make its first turn, and then our opposing generals will have 12 hours to submit their orders for the Germans. So their purchase, their combat moves, and then any particular non-combat moves that they want to make. They'll have 12 hours to do that. And then the membership will then have 12 hours to vote on those moves. Okay, so everyone will be able to see what the moves are, but only members will be able to vote. That's one of the benefits of being a member. You'll be able to vote as a member of the world to decide which of the generals' moves you will follow, right? And then we'll do a member-only live stream, and the folks that can see that what'll happen is we'll execute those moves, roll for everybody on camera so everybody can see what's going on. And unless one of those generals are on the chat, like you guys are now, we'll make the most logical choice that we can. We won't, we're not going to throw the game, but we're not going to choose a bomber when an infantry is the right thing to do. But we'll do the best that we can. And then when the Germans move is over, then Doug and I will talk about what the UK's turn is, what they want to do, and then we'll make the UK's turn, which will then give the opposing generals 12 hours to come up with Japan's response. And then the community will have 12 hours to vote, and so on and so forth, until we get through 6 turns, 6 full rounds, and end at the US's turn.
Or 5.
Unless someone decides to resign. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. But I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. It should be it should be good. Charles, this is how you know Charles lives in Las Vegas. Let me just put that out there. I love it.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. Very good, man. So if it's something that you're interested in participating in, either as a general or as a voting member, feel free to join us, and you'll be added to our Discord channel, which is a lot of fun, and it should be. I think it's going to be perfectly ridiculous. Like I think it'll be interesting to have the strategic conversation as we go. I'll be really interested to see what the generals do, and there, of course, will be times where like the generals' moves will be very similar to each other. But I hope that they'll look for different strategic lines, right? But we'll see how that goes. But
it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun either way.
Yeah, I think absolutely. This is the Gary and Doug versus the world will be Axis and Allies. Though it would be interesting to do that in diplomacy too. That'd be fun. I don't know how that would work, but I'd be interested to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
But we do have a couple of fun things coming up for diplomacy, by the way. So, do you have something?
No, I was just saying it'd be a different dynamic with diplomacy, but
yeah. Yeah, so diplomacy, man. We covered the U.S. National Championship at Gen Con, and we actually have live footage from that we'll be bringing and editing into a single video, which should be very, very cool. The editing for that's going to be tricky. The idea is that it's going to kind of feel like a cross between The Office, because there'll be like side testimonials, right? And Survivor, because there'll be like backstabbing of diplomacy. So
I was just going to say, I'm not into the TV show Survivor, but it sounds like it's going to be like that.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen enough of it flipping through channels to know what it is like.
Right. So I think that's kind of the idea of how it's going to work, but we'll see how it all comes together. But Landon, thank you very much, sir, for becoming a member. Good man. Thank you very much, sir. Great to have you with us. Thank you. Patrick, where's the link to your Discord? So Patrick, at the moment, We just launched this Discord a couple of weeks ago, and right now it's member only because I want to make sure that everything works the way that we want it to. But in the next probably week and a half, we're going to open this up to the public because if anybody remembers from the final of last year's video, we made a lot of noise about a Find a Player project, and we got almost 500 people that filled out the form and gave us their information, and they've been waiting ever so patiently, thank you very much, for us to do something with it. And this is, I think, going to be the easiest and most effective way to use that information. So we'll be reaching out to all those people via the emails that they gave us to invite them to the Discord server. Now they'll be there, but they won't be members per se, so they won't be able to access the special events, stuff like that, but they will be able to get into our Find a Player servers and be able to go to, you know, California or to Idaho or to Missouri and say, you know, I'm in Columbia or I'm in Kansas City or I'm in St. Louis or I'm wherever, and then, you know, sub servers may form for the different cities or whatever as it fills up. But the idea is that this is going to be kind of the centralized meeting place for as many Access and Allies players as we can get. Plus, we'll be adding all of the event information for all of the Access and Allies events that we can find in North America, in Europe, in Australia. So that my goal is to have every Access and Allies event that's got more than 10 people at it listed in this server. So that if you want to know where there's an Access and Allies event, this is where you go. That is absolutely our goal. So we're making sure that all the bells and whistles work, and the members are getting access to it now, so they're able to kind of test all that stuff as we go through. But watch this space, because in the next week or so, that link will go out to the world, and we'll be inviting everybody to be there, to be able to use it as a connection point for live play, for online play, for events, for strategy conversations, for our special events, Gary and Doug versus the World, plus a whole other thing that we haven't talked about today called Theater Commanders, which is going to be it's a whole nother level of chaos and fun. So there's just a lot coming up. But Patrick, thank you for this question, and thank you for your interest in. If you want to join that server now, you're welcome to do so, but you got to be a member. So if you want to click that join button and become a member, we can kick you in there, and you can help us with the betaing of all of that. So, all right. Did I say that right? I think so. All right.
I stopped listening 5 minutes ago. I don't know.
I don't blame you. I stopped. So did I. I don't even know why are we still here. I don't know what's going on.
It sounded good. It made sense.
All right, cool. Art Vandalay. First, I'm going to take this because I like this name. Glad to see the channel taking off and bringing Access and Allies in a big way to YouTube. Was there a G1941 or 42 championship at Gen Con 2024? Why, yes. Yes, there was. And we did record it with 5 cameras, at least 4 cameras. And we will be bringing you a play-by-play of that game in February is the current plan. So a couple of the people who played in that game are actually in the chat here. So there is that tournament did happen, and it happens every year at Gen Con. It hasn't been the World Championship event yet, but at this point, it's been going on for a long time. So, and it was 1942. They play the 42 version of that. So fantastic. Yes. I'm afraid I don't know who this is, but I loved meeting everybody at Gen Con. It was so much fun. It's weird to be recognized as you're like walking around. I'm not really accustomed to that, but it's really nice. It's nice when people come up and introduce themselves and say, "Hey, enjoyed the videos" or whatever. That's always great. And I tried to have like a sticker or a coaster or something to give to people as they came up and said hello. But yeah, Doug, I know a lot of people came up and said hello to you as well.
Yeah, it was cool to just be able to meet people, and yeah, it's neat to see all the new players that the videos got interested in coming to Gen Con and just really hopefully growing the Access and Allies community. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I was talking to Greg about it, and the attendance from 23 to 24 for the Access and Allies tournaments roughly doubled in a year, which is pretty amazing. So
That's awesome.
And a lot of the people that were there because they saw our videos. So I love that we've been able to have this kind of impact on the community, and it's just such a like it's a great community. They've been around for a long time. They've just been so spread out, right? And a lot of people got away from the game. They played it when they were in college, and then they had kids and jobs and whatever. And some of them come back, or some of them are just learning the game now and teaching their kids. And so I love that there's kind of this resurgence. Some of that is a lot of that, of course, has to do with Renegade and them republishing a lot of the games that have been out for a long time. But it's been fun to be able to help grow the community in that way. So yes, they do. Not really, no. I tried that for a little while, but no, they don't do that. It's fun. I was tempted to get business cards that said this. My wife said it was a bad idea, so. But that's okay. She said I was. I believe the word she used was insufferable. I believe that was the word, but that's okay. We had a good time with it. Well, I believe it is probably time to bring this thing in for a landing. We're an hour and 45 minutes. I think we were shooting for an hour, but we got such a great response here today. If you've got Axis and Allies swag for Christmas, we would love to see those pictures. If you want to get those over to us, and I guess the Facebook page would be a good place to do that. I know a lot of people got Axis and Allies stuff for Christmas, so that's cool. Again, if you get an opportunity to join us, we've got a lot of that stuff going on in Discord already. I was just getting a bunch of beeps from folks in over there, but man, it's been. In case you were curious, yes, that's my wife right there. Yes, she's. Yes, that was the face that she had for about a week after we got home from Czech. Oh boy, yeah, but it was a lot of fun. All right, well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody that's been on the chat for this big kind of marathon session here, we're thrilled that you're. Thank you for the super chats from Ted from marketing, which I believe is actually Jeff, and Alex from Norway. Man, really appreciate the support. We've got a couple of new members that came in here. Lieutenant Hyde joined us, and Landon also joined us. So that I believe that takes us up to 34, 35. 5 more, and we get this. Should be a lot of fun. We've got lots more prizes. There's a global map signed by Larry. There's 1941 or 1914 signed by Larry. Larry signed a ton of stuff for us. Really, really nice. Really, really generous. So thank you for being a moderator today, John. You did a great job in there. Thank you again very much. Doug, anything you want to share with folks?
No, it was good to be here. A lot of fun to get back into it, and looking forward to going over the anniversary games. Yes,
they're on my table right now. We're recreating them as we speak. Doug's helping with some of it, so it's gonna be a lot of fun. I hope that you'll join us in January. Man, January is going to be a blast. I'm really excited about everything that's coming up in January, and then for the rest of the year. So stay with us, friends. It's going to be a lot of fun. Doug, thank you so much for being here. We're going to let you go. You bet. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So anything else that I need to cover? I think we've got it all for the day. Think about joining us. Tommy, how often do you do this? We normally do these live streams after one of the big videos has come out. So we just released the 1942 final from Gen Con and the 2024 Gen Con. So that went out Tuesday to the membership, Wednesday to the general public. And so that we do this on usually the following Friday. So in January, we've got 4 videos coming out. So we'll have 4 of these. So you can look pretty much every Friday except for January 3rd. We won't be doing one that first week, but then after that it will be, we've got 4 matches from the World Championship coming up. So we've got a quarterfinal match, 2 semifinals, and then the final match, which there's some really, really good games in here. So I'm still going through them now and kind of piecing them all together. But there's some really good games in here that I'm excited to kind of bring to everybody. So I should also say that my expertise is in 42nd edition. So I'm going through these 42 through the anniversary games, and seeing them in a different way. I've played the game, of course, many times, but seeing them in a different way is also a lot of fun. So I'm excited to kind of bring that to everybody. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for the likes. If you're headed out now, please hit that like button on your way out the door. We'd really appreciate that. Really helps with the old YouTube algorithm for this and other projects that we're working on. And again, if membership is something that's right for you, we'd love to see you in there. We'll make sure that join button is nice and bright on all of the videos. So if that's something that you're interested in, we would love to have you. But for now, have a great holiday season. Happy New Year. We will see you all in January for the World Championship of Axis and Allies, brought to you from 2024, sponsored by our friends at Renegade. And it should be a lot of fun. Thank you all for being here, and we will see you next time.